I came to Puerto Rico at the end of the second millennium. I had been living in San Diego, California for the previous 6 years. I was part of the holistic health and sex-positive communities. My motivation? A desire to bring what I learned from those communities into the academic discourse of our era. There is sacredness in all forms of life. This is a new foundation for knowledge, a new episteme. In practice, what this means is reclaiming our magic, creating a new marriage of the sacred and the sexual, something that's natural when you consider love an art. In the early years, I was acclimating to the tropical environment, to Hispanic culture. I was traveling a lot. I was integrating cultural practices like bisexuality with its sexual fluidity and polyamory with its amorous inclusiveness. But I came back to the beach, and every time I realized she made everything possible. The beach loved me. Playa Azul is on the south side of the west coast of Puerto Rico, the caressing Caribbean side. Even with the climate instability of our time, we still have an ideal climate here from November to March or sometimes April. Like most educational institutions of our era, the university has problems. When resources go to prisons, policing, weapons, and interminable wars, this can't be too surprising. However, it provides the stability that's ideal for an aquaphile like me. My project unfolded with books, events, courses.
Others have often asked me, but what is ecosexuality? How can you define it? And I always say, I don't want to define it because things that are defined are also things that are finite. And I believe that ecosexuality has an enormous transformational potential. However, when people ask me, what do you mean by ecosexual love? I do have an answer, and this is what I mean. Ecosexual love is the love that reaches beyond genders and beyond numbers and beyond ages and beyond orientations, races, origins, species, and even biological realms to really embrace all of life as a partner with equal rights. We are near a waterfall in Puerto Rico. We are approaching the Maricao area, which used to be a place where coffee was produced and also sugarcane. We are blessed with the guidance of two students of the University of Puerto Rico. And I am Serena Anderlini Donofrio. I am also a professor at the University of Puerto Rico. The students that we have are Paula Pagan, who is studies psychology and is a nature therapist. She believes that nature can be our doctor and nurse and therapist. And we also have Ricardo, who is actually a specialist in agriculture, soil science, and also the study of microorganisms and mycelium mats within the soil. As we were driving up, we were talking a little bit about what happened to the plants of Puerto Rico at some point, right?
Yes, like at some point in 1930, 96% of the natural flora of Puerto Rico was all wiped out by agriculture, and then it was all replanted. So we have some forest places.
Yes, and this is a very important perspective on the history of nature in Puerto Rico. It's also different from what happens to other islands of this region, the Caribbean. In Puerto Rico, this deforestation happened late. We're already talking about 1940s, so the great period of modern coloniality was finishing, and it was relatively brief in the sense that at some point the forest was gone, but then it was allowed to grow again. And actually, we are here in a little glen with these beautiful bamboos that create a microclimate. Like up there, it's really hot, and here it's humid and cozy and breezy, and it's like this little bubble of a paradise. Why is it possible? Because really the deforestation that hurt the Caribbean with the plantation economies of modern coloniality, especially in the island of Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti, which was a big plantation for Europe throughout the 17th and 18th century.
When the Haitian Revolution happened in 1804, the slaves liberated themselves and the big planters moved to Cuba. A plantation economy is very destructive because
it really creates a very deep deforestation where all the mycelium mats die, the rhizomes die, and so the forest doesn't regrow itself all that easily. Whereas here we've had less damage, more brief damage, and therefore now Puerto Rico has a certain subsistence agricultural production and a lot of just natural regrowth of many different species. The bamboo in particular that is prominent in this glen is a protected species here in Puerto Rico, so people cannot harvest it or use it. Like this, where we really see the glory of nature's variety, how that creates strength, resilience, because all these species are helping each other.
Here in our island, we consider that like completely normal, and even we like that. We like the the mingle, you know, the all different possibilities.
When I came to teach to this island, I immediately got that vibration from being in front of a classroom where people weren't organized around their racial identity.
the Columbian exchange was an exchange of plant and animal species, bacteria, and human populations involving Europe, Africa, and the Americas.
That's the difference between monoculture and polyculture or multicultures, like different varieties of this same species growing. Some could withstand the hurricane, some could withstand drought, some could tolerate frost.
Exactly. These permaculture systems are more resilient.
More resilient, and they look to like imitate or mimic nature. Yeah, as simple as one plant could be like the home for one insect that pollinates another plant, that could be the food for another animal. From the soil on top, you could see like insects, some symbiotic exchange within flower and insects, and underneath you can see like bacteria and fungi and mycelium. And if you imagine the whole world, all those different symbiotic relationships that we might not even know, it's a really complex and romantic story. Like pollinators and flowers, like bees and orchids, and how the essence might persuade or seduce the insect, and it's like a love letter. Like we could take the love letter. They persuade us to keep propagating them giving us
Yeah.
food or essences, and we keep propagating them, actually using us to keep the like spreading their genes or their life, our internal ecosystem, and the same with our internal ecosystem, we could apply it to the external ecosystem. For example, the antibiotics, if we apply some antibiotic to the
The
soil,
soil.
like herbicide or pesticide, we are damaging the whole ecosystem, and then that place could be available to another invasive species or damaging species jump there and colonize.
Right.
When I see nature as a therapist, what I mean is when you get out of this squared white buildings where we live at, and we actually find that place, that natural place in which you can sit and just look at life. You can understand how the cycles of life evolve.
We're always either in the past or in the future. Whereas
Right.
in coming in an ecosystem like this, we can really sink into the present moment and experience all this sensorial stimulation that then can also awaken our sensuality. And we can also begin to reconnect to the metabolism of the earth.
Would it be walking barefoot or getting into the river, the ocean, swimming in the ocean? Get here and you experience a whole day here. You see the changes, how the light works. You can feel as the animals we're more instinct to actually change our smells to
Right.
get them tamed.
Deodorant.
Right. And we
Right.
should learn to get back. And also with our own metabolism, we are what we eat, we are what
Yeah.
we smell. We're in natural environment. We can learn again how to use our smell, for example, our body smells, to know the health of my inner body.
So we are here to talk about a change in metaphors that is brought to us by ecosexuality. We are accustomed to interpreting the earth as a mother, and we're now invited to interpreting the earth as a lover. What's in a word, right? Words are metaphors, and a metaphor is a concept borrowed from the literary arts. And if we interpret the arts as the sciences that help us invent the belief systems that we need, then we see how powerful this change in metaphors can be. Yes, many have asked me, why this theory of Gaia? What's so important about it? And why pick something that is still so controversial with the majority of conventional scientists? I have two very simple reasons. Theory of Gaia articulates a new paradigm for our understanding of life on Earth. And it's in 2 points. One is the macroscopic aspect that really comes to us from a British scientist named James Lovelock. Lovelock looks at the Earth within the solar system and asks the question, is it just because it's the third planet positioned at the right distance from the sun that the Earth is so different from its neighbors Mars and Venus? Or shouldn't we perhaps ask a different question? How come Mars and Venus, which are either further or closer to the sun, are so similar to one another and Earth is so different? Because it's alive. So here comes the hypothesis that maybe the biota, the sum of atmosphere and biosphere on the third planet, has a biography. Namely, it has a life cycle. It came to happen at one point and might be gone at some other point, just perhaps in the same way that the biotas of other planets came upon some time and then were gone. A biography for our planet. Namely, the idea that we cannot take for granted that the habitats, that the ecosystems
that host our lives as humans and also the lives of all the other species will be forever there for us. Then there is a more microscopic aspect, and the study of this aspect comes to us from an American scientist, a bioscientist. Her name is Lynn Margulis. Unlike James Lovelock, who is now in his 90s, Lynn Margulis is no longer with us, but her legacy is. And the main point that she made is that our foremost ancestors are bacteria, these unicellular organisms that came about on this planet about 4 billion years ago. They have been around for a very long time, so they clearly know what to do about being welcome on this planet. And it's very interesting that bacteria, in order to multiply, they simply have to divide. However, they exchange genes with their neighbors all the time, and they do this playful activity that we humans would call sex all the time, just to keep their species younger, to rejuvenate and to stay alive and to have fun. Also, very interestingly, according to Margulis, the most important step in evolution has to do with the fact that at one point, one bacterium entered another. And that's when, from a prokaryotic cell, this cell became an eukaryotic cell, namely a cell with a nucleus, a cell able to transmit information to future generations. So what was this move? This move in reality was a symbiotic move. The two cells started to live together, one inside the other, and they formed a more complex organism. And then from that first step in evolution, all the other steps are imaginable, including what then ends up being our own personal ecosystems, very complex organisms made of different organs that have different functions and come together for a certain period of time and then get recycled into other forms of life. So again, according to Lynn Margulis, symbiosis, collaboration, the exchange of genes, the playful activity that organisms do with one another when they have sex or other kinds of amorous interchanges is very good for us. And it happens all the time. Our very cells are doing it as we speak now. That's what's fascinating to me about Gaia theory. When we interpret the earth as a mother, we tend to behave like children. And children often take things for granted. We humans take for granted that all the resources that this planet has for us will be there forever.
Maybe 15 years ago, we received an application from Serena Anderlini. So we accepted her as to start was to teach Italian. Then she moved to different areas like cinema and course of humanities is Western civilization and other subject that she likes to teach. And I retired 4 or 5 years ago, so we lost a little contact with Serena, and only lately we start to meet again.
At an early stage, Serena's research was sponsored by the release time program of the Office of the Dean when I was in that position. In addition, I supported her as a coordinator for the graduate proposal in cultural studies. I always tried to align Serena's interest in research with the strategic direction of the Dean's office. She developed a line of research that produced a considerable body of publications on her field of study. Publications included papers, books, and presentations in national forums. Serena created an awareness of a particular research field that I was not aware of. This expanded my views of the research possibilities on campus and increased my knowledge on cultural studies. It was quite a challenging personal and professional journey.
I met Serena Anderlini at a support group. People from the west area of Puerto Rico that we live alternative lifestyles in terms of our intimate relationships, and that included bisexuality, homosexuality. The support group was very important for many of us because in this area there was nothing. I found that Serena was distinguished herself for being a intellectual, and then there were other of us that would associate with her or relate to her because we like reading, we like writing as well. I had given 10 to 12 years of my life to the Puerto Rican independent movement, where we used to debate a lot about what is freedom. So I was part of a very important moment in the Puerto Rican independent movement in Chicago, and we pushed that we couldn't talk about Puerto Rican freedom without including that particular population. She's a good friend, open people's mind about who they are and who they are sexually.
Serena's work comes from more of a holistic perspective, so she's looking at integrating the human with the animal world, the plant life, nature, all of Earth together, and looking at how polyamory relates to ecosexuality and ecofeminism. I then read her book Plural Loves, and then I read her book Gaia, The New Politics of Love, and was absolutely floored by the book. Serena's work has inspired my work. When I was reading Serena's book Gaia, The New Politics of Love, she uses the metaphor of Gaia. Her decision to use this terminology was a bold move, I think. And so reading her work, especially the Gaia work, inspired me to use the word love a lot in my project. I use the words like faith, love, and spirit, and trust. So relationship literacy is a way of thinking about broadening our understanding of how we can relate to each other and just being more accepting. Polyamory is a sort of returning back to a more magical and mystical way of thinking. It's more intuitive. Serena's work has inspired me to go out on limbs that I didn't think that I would ever go out on.
What's a plural wedding of ecosexual love? It's a wedding where the shared bride is an ecosystem. Participants declare their love for the place. They become the spouses or spice of, in our case, a beach. We created Te Amo Playa Azul, I Love You, when I became aware of how the beach had been a source of health and happiness for myself and all my relationships. I wanted to celebrate this, to sacralize this union. The program included preparations and rituals. Shaison and I issued an open invitation, which manifested an incredibly diverse group. How does it feel to experience an ecosystem as a lover we share with others? It starts by reconnecting with one's inner ecosystem. It continues by connecting with the four elements. Water, air, fire, earth. There is always at least one witness to our love even when we believe we are totally alone with our beloved. That witness is Gaia, with her beautiful and romantic ecosystems. At dusk, we celebrated the wedding vows. Extended families include married and single relatives. In Latin America, they organize social life like expanded families in polyamorous communities. In this wedding, everyone got to be a spouse, even family members who are typically single. It was very inclusive.
I mean, my experience today with Serena and everybody here on the beach in Puerto Rico has been transcendent. I mean, everybody moving beyond maybe their comfort zones, feeling that, seeing that growth has been amazing. I'm not going to forget today on a global scale and on a micro level, the exercise that we did where we were, one person was a moon and one person was receiving and one person was giving, is something that I've never seen any one exercise that you could do that communicates ecosexuality, polyamory, love is abundant, non-monogamy, however you want to phrase it, and I'm very grateful for that.
So ecosexuality is combining our understanding of how we, human beings, are not separate from nature, but we are nature. And it breaks down the barriers, but it is inclusive. A person is walking on the beach feeling the sand under their toes, and that could be a sexual moment. And being open to moments like that is helping also people to understand how our actions and what we do with our lives impact the earth. So it's combining sexuality, the green movement together to create this new way of thinking. Polyamory helps us to understand that love and sexuality are not these divided things, but that we can integrate them together.
That's why this northwest corner of Puerto Rico, called Rincon, which means corner, is so significant to me. This is where two bodies of water come together. The waters of the Atlantic that touch the north and the eastern shore of Puerto Rico, and the waters of the Caribbean that touch the south and the west shore of Puerto Rico. Almost every island in the archipelago of the Antilles has this Atlantic side and this Caribbean side. And here we see that the waves of the Atlantic that touch the northern shore really don't go ashore but go sideways along the shore. And we also see the agitation of this ocean, the Atlantic, an ocean that is agitated even when it's calm. We can see how these bodies of water come together, they touch each other, they kiss, and then they part ways. Why are the waters of the Atlantic so agitated? Perhaps it's because of the memories of over 16 million deported Africans and the dreaded Middle Passage that threatened their existence. Memories of 40+ million immigrants that came to work in the New World from countries that had no colonies. Memories from the exchange of bacteria, plants, animals, people, diseases that resulted from that famous accident that occurred to an adventurous Genovese sailor named Columbus.
This dwelling is a liminal space between land, sky, and sea. Its hypnotic beauty is magical. I became a steward of the beach, making sure it is quiet, clean, and hospitable to nature lovers. It's inspiring to write while looking at this view with the music of the waves and the caressing breeze. It's a temple for practicing the arts of love with imagination and creativity, where I can trust my intuition. I believe that love is the ecology of life, and I wanted this to be the message of my work. The book Eros is a memoir of my amorous and erotic journeys across cultures and languages. To that practice, Gaia was the theory. Sharing resources of love is good for the ecology of planet Earth. Sharing resources is also good in collaborative books. The Age of Wisdom attracted young minds to my ideas. Ecosexuality became the organizing principle. Lindsay Hageman was a lead collaborator for the first collection on this theme with 30 voices. With Lindsay, I also learned to produce books as Triwekis. Shaison Anthony got me into cinema, making films, which is another great gift. My 10 dialogues about love are next, with Occupy the Heart, a performance piece, and a study of ecosexuality and cinema. More plural weddings for ecosexual communities. I envision a Te Amo Playa Azul everywhere, with people renewing their vows or declaring their love for an ecosystem.